smells can bring back strong memories and feelings. This week we'll hear a story about bad smells, good smells, and what they can teach us about fear, love, and hope. From a spilled cup of milk to a powerful moment with Jesus, we'll see how hope isn't just a feeling, it's something we can share. Come hear how God is still doing something new, even when things are really hard. You know, as a parent, I tried to teach my kid a lot of important stuff. Sometimes I guess I missed a lesson and realized, wow, I really should have thought of that one maybe a lot earlier. Well, one day we got in our car and the smell was horrific. Well, as it turned out, our son, then pretty young, had spilled milk in the back seat. A lot of milk. Now, milk is the product of a living creature, so the car now smelled like death. The lesson we should have taught earlier was, when you spill something, please tell someone. It had to be professionally cleaned, and it was ozoned twice, and it kept a lingering odor for some time. Here's some things about smells. The smell of sickness or decay can trigger a disgust response within us, leading to avoidance of the source, which can help prevent the spread of pathogens and disease. Foul odors can indicate that food has gone bad, and it's no longer safe to eat, prompting us to throw it away. The olfactory bulb, which processes odors, is directly connected to the hippocampus and the amygdala. Those are areas of the brain involved in memory and emotions, which explains why certain smells can trigger some of the strongest memories and the strongest reactions. Remember the band Lynyrd Skynyrd? They once captured the power of scent in their song called That Smell. It's a haunting reflection on descent into substance abuse. The writer, he wasn't being preachy. He's writing as someone who's been there and experienced it. Each verse is punctuated with the refrain, "Ooh, that smell. Can't you smell that smell? Ooh, that smell. The smell of death surrounds you." You see, the song paints a picture of destruction and loss, where the choices made leave an unmistakable trail in the air. The smell is inescapable. A warning, a consequence, a sign of life unraveling. The imagery is vivid, just as the smell of death was unmistakable when Jesus approached the tomb of Lazarus, his good friend. Lazarus coming out of the tomb had happened not long before our passage for today. It had resulted in the agreement of church leaders that Jesus had to die, so they began to plot. From that point until he entered Jerusalem in the week leading up to his death, Jesus was careful who he was around. So in today's gospel, we find Jesus sitting at a table with friends with the one who had been dead and who is now alive. Man, can you imagine the emotions that had to be in the air in that room? Are the friends and the family maybe joking or giving him a hard time about the smell? Remember, Jesus had wanted them to roll the stone away, and Martha had said, "Lord, already there is a stench because he's been dead for 4 days." But Jesus had them remove the stone anyway, and Lazarus, who had been dead, came forth. So as they're sitting at this table, I'm sure the memory of that event hung there in the air. That's when Mary, Lazarus' other sister, came in with her jar. The contrast couldn't be sharper. In one moment, the air is thick with the stench of loss and decay. In another, it's filled with the scent of very expensive perfume, a fragrance that speaks of love and sacrifice. Mary, the one who had wept at Jesus' feet in mourning, now kneels at his feet in worship. She knows, perhaps more deeply than anybody, what it means to hope in Jesus. She has seen death overturned with her own eyes, and so she does not hold back. She pours everything out. She does not keep the jar on a shelf, does not ration out its contents. She breaks it open, releasing all of it at once, filling the whole house with its fragrance, with its smell. She anoints Jesus in a way that foreshadows his burial. But she does so with the confidence of one who knows that even in the face of death, life is not over. Grace is not done. Resurrection is always coming. We encounter a common problem with the readings in the lectionary, or when we start and stop and don't get the whole story. What's not there? Well, between Lazarus coming out of the tomb, we would get to be a fly on the wall listening to the problem that the leaders were having. There's an absolute fear. It reads, the council and said, "What are we to do? This man is performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and destroy both our holy place and our nation." But one of them, Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year, said to them, "You know nothing at all. You do not understand that it is better for you to have one man die for the people than to have the whole nation destroyed." What we see is fear, and that fear is then in the driver's seat. What we see there in that room in Bethany, in the actions of Mary, that's hope. The people are absolutely in a terrifying place with the threat of a stronger oppressor hanging over them, with the leaders and their followers reacting out of fear. And then we have Mary, who is not even able to sit at that table, acting out of faith and hope. You know, I had an interesting conversation with an author and professional at a mental health conference that I remember. She was teaching about self-harm. The single most mitigating factor, she said, in self-harm was hope. Well, I went to speak to her afterward. I asked her to put into words for her what hope means. She thought for a while, a good indication you're going to get a meaningful answer, and she responded, "It's the belief that in your situation, that tomorrow can be at least a little bit better than today." Well, the people of Isaiah's time that we read about in the first lesson were in an equally tough situation. And Isaiah points them back to their collective memory in the stories of the Exodus, where God provided. He lifts up hope. He points the people to the possibility of a better future, which empowers them. Sharon Welch, along with others, claims that one of the enemies of justice-making is the death of imagination, which gives rise to a culture of despair and a posture of resignation. She writes, "The death of compassion follows the death of imagination and leads to the inability to act or to envision a better future." So throughout Jesus' ministry, he has continually fueled that imagination of living in the light and seeing life and a better day. Isn't that the way of God? Isn't that the way God has always worked? You know, long before Mary poured out her perfume, long before Lazarus walked out of his tomb, God spoke through the prophet Isaiah. "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." God's way has always been one of renewal, of transformation, of bringing life where there was once only barrenness. When all we can see is dry land, God speaks of rivers flowing through it. When all we can smell is decay, God fills the air with the scent of something new. This is what hope smells like. It smells like the perfume that filled the house in Bethany, a smell that spoke of her devotion, faith, hope, and trust. It smells like the raw wood in the workshop waiting to be formed, like something about to bloom, like rain hitting parched ground, and like pie baking in the oven, like anything that reminds us that life is still moving forward and can be better. Hope is not just a distant wish or an abstract belief. It is something tangible, something that we can sense, something that, like Mary's perfume, lingers there in the air. We breathe it in and know that tomorrow can be a better day, so that we don't react out of our fear, but act out of compassion and love. It's great to have hope, but it is not meant to be stored away. It is not meant to be kept in a jar for later use. It's meant to be poured out. It's meant to fill the spaces where death and despair have left their marks. Mary poured out her perfume, and Jesus would soon pour out his life. He would hold nothing back. He would not measure out his love in increments. He would give everything, emptied to the last drop, so that we might be filled. And now the question comes to us, will we do the same? Will we live as people who pour ourselves out in love, who fill the world with the fragrance of hope? Or will we, like Judas, hold back, calculating and counting the cost, hesitant to give up too much? Will we be people who trust that God is still doing a new thing, still making a way where there seems to be none, still filling the air with the smell of new life? The smell of hope could fill every space we enter. What if it could be present in our homes, in our workplaces, and in our communities and in this world? What if, when people encounter us, they experience something different, something that speaks of grace and newness and the promise that resurrection is always on the way? We didn't have to turn our truck or burn our truck. We held on to it, and the smell faded. And it's a funny family story now. You know, the members of Leonard Skinner endured more tragedy, and I've listened to their stories of overcoming that darkness. The smell of death in life can absolutely surround you, but the sweet smell of grace and life can overcome it. And the smell of life lingers. Hope remains. And God is still doing a new thing. Amen.